welcome back. And today, for me at least, is New Gear Day, and it's also a unboxing of a new product we've got crossing our bench. This is the Audio2000s AMX7303, and as long as it performs as expected, this is going to be replacing our existing mixer in the studio. Right now, we have a Beachtech DXA Micro Pro Plus, which we reviewed and I was super impressed with about a year and a half, probably almost 2 years ago at this point. And I still think that that is a fantastic little mixer. However, it has one glaring flaw for use in my studio here, and that is it only has one phantom powered XLR. Otherwise, on the go, lithium ion battery, phantom power out. It does actually accept stereo microphones, but it doesn't have phantom power for the second one. Just the general configuration, the size, everything is fantastic, but I'm in the studio here, which is more of a fixed usage scenario. I have a dedicated space, nothing in here moves. So we went and I picked up this 7303, which is about 64 bucks on Amazon. That makes it a little bit less expensive than Behringer's 802, which is what I would need if I wanted to have stereo XLR microphones. And I have some new microphones I'm going to be using with this as well, and I will grab one of those in a little bit. So this is the 7303, and let's go ahead and see what is inside the box. We've got a pretty hefty box. This is not light. Says here it's a 4-channel, which we've got 2 XLRs and then 2 mono ends for all 4 channels, and I don't see a way to pull out the individual channels, so it's going to stereo mix on its out. We've got a built-in DSP. We do have, oddly enough, a built-in USB port, and it says that's for an MP3 player. I'm not sure how useful that's going to be with the limited display ins, but if you wanted to have background music or something like that playing during a video, I can see the benefit of there. We've got pan and aux and effects controls on all channels, high accuracy level indicator, pretty standard from the looks of it. Phantom power switch, sealed rotary knobs, rugged steel chassis, which makes sense why it feels so heavy, and it says it's got a multi-voltage power supply for international use, which is interesting to know, but we're here in the US, so since that's its country of design, at least in California, power is going to be the same. So it looks like we've got a regular 2-pin IEC plug. This one's a little short. I'll probably end up replacing that one. Oh, this is the mixer itself. Got some rubber feet, all of our lovely knobs and dials. And here's our owner's manual. 4-channel mixer with USB and DSP processor. Read the manual thoroughly. I'm sure there's not a whole ton in a manual this size. So, what all do we have? Safety precautions. Do what the manual says. Don't apply heat to it. Use a grounded plug. I don't understand what the purpose of the plug being polarized is on this particular unit, and it doesn't look like it actually is. Since it comes with a regular figure 8, even if you plugged the actual wall plug in to match the polarity, you can flip this around very easily. So let's see, we got some standard XLRs. I am not a huge fan of this style XLR plug. I generally prefer the combo XLR mono plugs that take 1/4-inch mono, but since I get dedicated jacks underneath them, that's not terrible. It's just a little bit wasteful as far as space is concerned. Let's see. So those are pretty straightforward. We've got gain, pan left, right, and and a high treble tone control knob. Is used to adjust the gain for the input signal centered at 12.5 kilohertz. Alright. Mid is centered at 2.5. Low is centered at 80 hertz. It's a little bit higher than I would have liked to seen the low centered, just personally, but that's not a bad place to put it either. Effect control adjusts the level of signal routed from the channel to the reverberation line. Alright, so this actually wouldn't be a terrible little box for a small DJ function. We've got some reverb if you want to do a couple of effects on the fly there. We've got delay and repeat controls here. Peak LED indicators. We've got one on each channel. Channel 3-4 is actually combined into a single control, which isn't all that uncommon on 4-channel, even 8-channel mixers. I mentioned that Behringer, which is actually a more popular and a higher end unit, but its channels, once you get past the first couple, are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to say it's 5, 6, 7, 8 that are combined on that as well. We've got a level control fader, adjust the volume from the channel. That's part of why I picked this one. I like having sliders for this. I've used mixers that use knobs for that particular control. They work. Visually, I like the sliders better. They're easier for me to read what's going on right away. I know that's at 0. I don't have to get up and look and see where on the gauge the individual knob is. USB interface. It looks like the USB interface shares channel 3-4 for its input. And then we've got record stereo output jacks. Output main signal. The recording out signal level is controlled by the main fader here. Underneath that we have tape in. I don't know the last time anyone used tape for something like this, but I'm sure some people still do. USB select button, plus press this button to have the level of stereo channel 3-4 controlled by the channel 3-4 controls. So I guess this toggles whether or not these are MP3 or USB, MP3, which is USB, or these stereo plugs. And we just get 1/4-inch tip sleeve inputs for 3-4. We don't get any kind of phantom power. Main control here, same kind of stuff. We've got a toggle for the phantom power and a peak meter for the microphones. We've got a delay control to adjust reverb. We've got a repeat control to adjust the repetition times of the reverb, so the duration there. Let's see, we've got an aux level control, an effect level control, and a main level fader. And then we've got a phones as well. And then there's this batch of main terminals, main stereo output. Would normally go to a power amp or active speakers. Looks like you can use this FX line for an external effects generator. And then we've got an auxiliary output jack, which is just a 1/4-inch tip sleeve, so that's going to be mono. Anything else exciting in the manual? The USB controls are pretty dead simple. Play, pause, previous, next. I guess if you were using this at an event, you could queue up some effects and scroll through them. If you were doing what I'm doing now and making a YouTube video, you could probably queue up some of your thematic music there and play it live. I don't see me using that a ton since I normally pull that kind of stuff in editing and post, but I suppose you could do it live instead if you were streaming. Something we should probably do. In fact, if you want to see Pocketables do a regular live stream, leave us a comment below, and Paul and I will work on setting that up regularly with him, myself, and some of the other editors. Outside of that, everything in here, 11 watts total power usage. That's nothing. Some troubleshooting, 1-year warranty. It's a metal brick. Unless you throw it down a flight of stairs, I don't really see anything potentially happening to it. I guess you could potentially overdrive it and blow a channel. Maybe I will open it up and take a look at the circuitry. It looks like it's only 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws total. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So, I am back. I went and picked up a little 4-volt driver here. And we're going to just go ahead and open this up. And you know what? Am I going to have to take off all the knobs too? All right. This is going to be more in-depth than I thought, but I'm already committed to this. And thankfully, I have footage to make sure that I can look at later and make sure I put all of these knobs back on in the right spot, because it wouldn't do to mess that up. I'm actually impressed at the number of screws that are on this. This makes it fairly serviceable if something did go awry internally. It's not a bunch of plastic snaps or tabs or anything. It is good old-fashioned Phillips screws. Looks like that comes off, and I can see the back of the mixer. This is actually encouraging. So it looks like I've got a dedicated circuit board here for part of the functionality. I can see an inspector's mark. We've got a shield here between the incoming power and the circuit board. That feels like Mylar maybe. Very clean looking layout. This was definitely not something that was just thrown together real quick. I don't see any labels on it. I would have liked to have seen labels. And it looks like this is held in by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws. It looks like there's a couple more that would have been optional. So let's... I think there's a nut that holds that one in on the other side. So that's not actually keeping this board in place. And I'm anticipating this not actually being loose since I haven't taken all the other knobs off. Yep. Okay. So, let's go ahead. You can actually see that the board is loose because this is moving just a little each time. Well, that's interesting. So some of these are using different post styles, although it's not consistent, so it looks like it may have just been an update to their inventory. Let's grab the other two red caps. Yeah, these caps are all the same. So the posts don't actually tell you which cap goes where. They just happen to be different. So, and that's what I was afraid of. I also have to take all of these nuts off. Alright, since I don't have all my tools here, a good number in the garage, I went and got one of these nifty universal sockets, and they're not something I would recommend for any kind of high torque application, but these are just little flat retaining nuts on 1/4 inch mono jacks, so I expect this to work pretty well. You know what? I'm going to put a link to this thing in the description. So, let's go ahead and take the rest of these off. That one out. All right, not bad for a bunch of pins on springs. I dig it. Alright, there goes all of these washers. This is going to be so much fun to reassemble. And that's not me complaining about the construction. I mean, this is just how you panel mount things and bolt stuff down. Any mixer would be just about the same. So with that all done, bit of wiggle there. And you know what? I'm going to unscrew whatever that little dedicated board is. Since there's no outputs there. I bet that is the power supply. Looking at the size of the traces on it. And if so, that's an interesting decision to put it there. But lo and behold, that is what it is. So they put the power supply right here in a blank spot on the panel. And looking at it, that probably gives them a lot more flexibility as far as, or sorry, not a lot more flexibility, but a lot more shielding from any potential interference. So there we've got the board, and like I said, we've got our little Mylar shield here. That is basically an MP3 player on a stick. They do have some variants of this that will record to MP3 as well as wave via USB. And I bet if I had one of those boards, I could probably just do a drop-in upgrade. I bet they share this main board, and then swap those out. Looks like we've got F4 USB on the board. I will definitely have to look that up and see what it is. We've got some nice gaskets on the sliders to stop any dust intrusion. Relatively clean surface. We've got a couple little LED drivers and logic chips there. And I see a couple of amplifiers of some sort. But where are they? We're definitely going to take time to, I want to say this is the effects chip. We're going to take time to include in the written description what some of these little circuits are. Overall, there's a little bit of dust on it, which tells me it probably sat in storage or shipping for a while, depending on, you know, one location made the board and then somewhere else did final assembly. But that said, everything looks clean. I don't see any cold solder joints. All the joints look solid. Nothing's loose even after my unceremonious disassembly here. So I want to know what these are. Those should be an amplifier, but of course I can't see the front of either one to actually know. It says that they are this one's marked, it's got it on the board. That one says 7805. This says TIP122. So let's see if we can find those really quick. So the 7805 is a voltage regulator integrated circuit. So this TIP122 is a 100 volt 5 amp general purpose amplifier. Looks like they're generally rated to handle about 65 watts worth of heat, depending on the configuration. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this off camera, and then we'll push some audio through it to the camera and see how it sounds. I know this is kind of a terrible looking setup, and the final configuration will definitely not look like this. I have the right angle XLR for the Beach Tech. I'm not going to have cables going straight up into the camera, but I wanted to hook the AMX7303 up with the same exact microphone that I use with the Beach Tech. And I'm actually going to turn the gain down a little bit. That sounds a bit hot. Throw my B-roll camera over there. Overall, set up exactly what I would expect. I think there might be a little more background noise in the Beach Tech. I know the Beach Tech uses some very high-end components. This was, I don't know, a third of the price, so I don't expect the exact same performance, but it doesn't sound like I'm getting terrible performance out of it either. It sounds comparable to some older Behringer mixers I've used, so that's actually fairly impressive. I also will probably get some better cabling. This is just a 1/4 inch cable I found, and a little 1/4 mono plug that I had in the drawer. These have been beat up and twisted and stuffed around. So anyway, I listened to a couple of clips of this dialing in the exact gain levels before starting the camera. I'm fairly impressed. Phantom power is good. I do wish these meters did a little bit more. I had to crank things really high to get those to actually show that they were doing anything. And that may be just based on what output I'm using. I may find that these record outs have a boost built in that I don't need because of the camera I'm using, and that I may get more out of just using this main left and right than the recording outputs, since those, I believe, would output at a level that a tape deck expects. So anyway, conclusion, not bad. I'm fairly impressed with it. You probably won't actually see this in any of my videos, but you'll definitely see, or at least hear, that I'm using this mixer. As I mentioned, I've got some stereo mics that I'm going to be pairing with this, which was the whole reason for purchasing a new mixer. Beach Tech, if you want to send me a stereo mixer, you have my email address, and I'd be more than happy to look at that or one from anybody else. Construction-wise, I do want to throw out one small note. After taking it apart, I found this single fragment of solder on my table. And that's not to say that this is some earth-shattering flaw. Everybody ends up getting loose bits of solder when you wave solder boards. It's just a fact of life. But that's the kind of thing that it's actually good that I opened it up just to check so that that doesn't short something out, 3 years down the road. If you've had a piece of electronics fail at what seemed like random, loose solder is just a fact of life for large-scale production. It is entirely feasible that that was your problem. I do want to take time to thank Electrix for our opening and closing music, and I'm actually going to go ahead and test this MP3 function. I will get some music from him, or if someone else would like to reach out and submit something to be used to test that, I'd be more than happy to use that as well. Definitely check out our Patreon. Thank you to our current patrons, and I'm happy to see anybody who's joined after the last couple of videos. Stuff like that is what makes videos like this possible. Anything that was used in this review, such as this mixer, I shouldn't call it a review, anything that was used in this unboxing and teardown is in the description below, as well as a couple of other things that have been mentioned. In the meantime, go ahead and check those out. Check out some of the articles on Pocketables. We've got a couple of lens reviews, a review of the camera that I use for these videos, and there will probably be a proper written review for this mixer at some point, although I'm not going to promise it's down there. That'll probably end up as a comment at some point in the future.